I'm thrilled to welcome you to The Gentlemanly Things. I'm the creator and host of this show, Brian Lipstein, and I'm so excited to get going with this idea that's been bubbling up in my head for easily the last year plus. I'll tell you, it's not easy to take an idea and make it happen in action, but you have to start somewhere. So I'm really excited to go on this journey together and welcome you guys into my world, a world where I have interests and passions for what I call the gentlemanly things. So what does that mean? The gentlemanly things are really all about putting time and care and attention into something for a better enjoyment. One of the things I always find so fascinating is all of us are on the same playing field when it comes to time. So I just want to start by saying I greatly appreciate the time that you're sharing with us. Please like us, follow us, and subscribe. This is The Gentlemanly Things. It's not a show about how to be a gentleman, but the art of living like one. And we're going to explore that one conversation at a time. Enjoy. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up outside of Philadelphia and ultimately came into the city to go to school at Penn. During my undergrad years, I never had the need to get dressed in a suit. Obviously, I wore clothes, but professional dress was never something that was on my radar until one day, one of my classmates told me that his family had a history of tailoring. And he said, "Let me make you a suit." I said, "Of course, I don't need a suit. What do I need a suit for? We're college kids." Senior year, I returned to school and I thought I would be interviewing for jobs, start a second semester. Turns out all the jobs I actually wanted interviewed in the fall. So as soon as we returned to campus, I had friends saying, "Oh, I'm going to this information session. I'm going to this information session. I have this interview lined up." And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I need to figure something out. And so the only person that had ever talked to me about professional clothing was this classmate. And I asked the question that most people ask, which is, what's it going to cost me? Now, let me take you back a little bit. There was reason behind that question for me, because growing up, my father came home when I was in fourth grade, so around the age of 10, and said, "Hooray, we don't have to wear suits to work anymore. We're going business casual." Turns out they were moving their office from Rittenhouse Square in Center City, Philadelphia, down to the sports arenas at the Spectrum. And he could now go to work wearing khaki pants and a team logoed polo shirt. Well, as a fourth grader, that's pretty impactful. It stuck in my memory through this day. But it put this impression on me that suits were evil. And I remember having discussions growing up, anytime we had to go to a family function, a wedding, a bar mitzvah, a funeral, unfortunately, how much my dad hated to have to put a suit on again. I didn't know why, but I just knew that he didn't enjoy it. And of course, I idolized my dad as a kid. So that's the influence. Now, fast forward a little bit, and I had to wear dress clothes through high school and college, but I never owned a suit. I always got by on sport coats and slacks. And my mom used to take me shopping at Strawbridge and Clothier in the local mall. And I hated that. It was just terrible. I hated shopping. I didn't know what I was doing. I had to look through all these racks. I had to try things on. I had no idea how to put combinations together. I didn't know anything about quality. I didn't even know alterations existed. And I had to be there with my mom when I would rather be playing video games or out playing sports or hanging out with friends. But it had to be done. So she dragged me to the mall. We went shopping. And I remember this one time that I actually found a tie I really liked. And I convinced my mom to buy it for me. And she made a comment. She said, "Don't tell your dad how much we spent on this." It was $50. She said, "Don't tell your father how much we spent. He doesn't believe in spending good money on clothes." And So I put two and two together from coming home saying, hooray, business casual, to, okay, don't spend good money on clothes. And that's the influence I grew up with. So fast forward now, right? Time to get a suit, senior year, interviews are here. And I asked the question, what's it going to cost? Because I was very fortunate and my parents were able to put me through college without any debt. Thank you, Mom and Dad. And, it was going to come down to my dad supporting me and him buying the suit for me. So I knew he wouldn't pay a lot. And here I am presented with the opportunity to get a custom suit, which was appealing to me because God knows I didn't want to go shopping in the store. I hated that already. And so I said, oh, well, I could just get exactly what I want. This sounds great. But what's it going to cost me? And I asked the question and they said, well, we haven't worked with anybody. We'll give you family pricing. I said, great. And told my dad the number and he said, sounds reasonable. Go ahead and do it. And so I went through this experience with the tailor. And I was always a curious kid. I say I was one of those why kids. I would ask my mom why about everything until I got the answer of, well, because I said so. You might relate to that. And same thing happened as I went through this experience with the tailor. So I said, well, what would you normally charge for these suits? And he gave me a number that in today's dollars would probably be somewhere around $3,500 to $4,000 as a starting price point. And I said, why would anybody ever pay that? I asked that question. Why would somebody pay that much for a suit when you can go over here and get a suit for $400? And I certainly wasn't paying what he was asking. So I also said, thank you for the price you gave me. But why would somebody pay that out of curiosity? And the tailor went on to explain to me that, hey, suits are made differently. Our suits are sewn together by hand and your cheaper suits are glued together. I said, what do you mean glue? I see seams. I took home ec class. I liked sewing, but I knew enough about the visual of a seam to know that it was created by sewing two panels together and then folding them inside out. And so somewhere down the road, I decided to cut open an expensive suit and a cheaper suit. And until I actually cut it apart and saw it, I didn't understand exactly what he was talking about. But once I saw that, I thought, nobody really is teaching this. And there's an opportunity here to make this experience better for men. And I started with my father. My father could have afforded nice suits, but never opted to buying them. And of course, he hated wearing the cheap suits because of everything that the differences are between what a nice suit gives you and what a cheap suit gives you. But he didn't know that. Nobody had ever educated him. And so I looked at that and I said, hey, there's maybe a chance to change how we build this process. And had an opportunity to apply to a program that Penn had for students, whether you were an undergrad or graduate student, any student involved in running a business had an opportunity to apply to an incubator. And they called the incubator the Venture Initiation Program. It was run by Wharton and VIP for short. And I applied and I got accepted. And it was my first step into being an entrepreneur. And so that's how I came into the world of clothing. I actually knew nothing about clothes. You could almost say less than nothing. Never cared about them. Never understood why presenting myself in a certain way could matter or should matter. And it was because nobody taught me that growing up. All I knew was you had to put clothes on to stay warm and be decent when you left the house. Beyond that, not too much. Right. So that's how Henry Davidsen came to be. Applied to this incubator, got some startup seed funding, had month-to-month advising from professors at the Wharton School, which was really, really helpful. Worked on a business plan during that. And actually, in the middle of that whole experience, was able to consult with the people that run the program on why entrepreneurship on campus wasn't more prevalent. And for that, they extended the term of the program an extra 6 months and grandfathered us in. And I'm really proud to say that some of our feedback helped the program go from 10 to 12 companies working within it and developing at a time in just 6 months to the next year. really having almost 50 to 100 companies with many, many, many more applying. Whereas you used to apply in my time, when we applied, everybody that applied got in because that's how many applications there were. And now they might get 200, 300 applications a year, and they really accept the top companies. So there's been some really, really prominent companies that have come out of that same incubator program as to where we started. There was something else going through that experience with the tailor that was missing, though. And it really came down to design. I knew I wanted the suit for interviews, and I had never bought a suit before. I certainly had never designed a suit before. I had no idea what the options were. And the tailor started asking me, well, how many buttons do you want on the suit? How do you want the pockets to be? How do you want the vents to be? What lapels would you like? I said, what are you talking about? I don't know what any of this means. I want the suit for interviews. What would you recommend? And he kind of defaulted to saying, well, this is our house style. It's a common term in tailoring, but really the tailor didn't want to understand me and my personality and what the suit was going to be used for and who the audience was. And it made me realize he defaulted to designing a suit more for him than he did for me. And through that lack of an experience with the tailor is how I found image consulting. And I had a tagline at the time that said, image matters. It says who you are and where you're going. And it was a tagline. But then I started Googling image, and I came across the Association of Image Consultants International. I found out there's a whole industry devoted to image consulting. Most people still don't know what image consulting is. So, right, it's not stylists. It's not graphic artists. Image consulting deals with appearance, behavior, and communication. We call it the ABCs of image consulting. It's a deeper level of psychology, building your personal brand, putting all of the puzzle pieces together, not just from wardrobing, but to hygiene and grooming and colors and patterns, to etiquette. How do you act in certain different situations? Etiquette is regional around the globe. So what's appropriate in one region may be really offensive in another. And starting to understand all of those finer intricacies really started to fascinate me. And as a 22-year-old at this time, I thought, well, my target client is a senior level executive. I'm trying to sell to 45, 50, 55, 60-year-old guys who have been professionals and very successful their entire life. I thought, well, there's a certification here. I might as well go for that certification, and it'll bring some credibility for me doing what I do, talking to these, well-accomplished men that we were targeting. So to take the certification, I had to go to Minneapolis, where the global conference for this organization was, and sit for a 300-question test that I studied for leading up to it. And I ended up passing the test, and I became the first certified male image consultant in our local chapter, which local was all of Pennsylvania and Ohio. But I was the first male to have that designation. You might imagine the industry is very heavily female dominated, but there are plenty of men in the industry, and I've made some great friends through it. But I had to go to Minneapolis to take this test, and the whole purpose of going was to take the test. But I figured, well, there's a whole conference happening. I might as well stay. And it was at that conference where I started learning, and I started really realizing there's a lot more depth to this than just making clothes. And there's a lot more strategy to making clothes and to building wardrobes than just picking some colors that you like or picking some patterns that you like. I started to learn my first courses in etiquette. And a lot of etiquette was common sense, but it's not common sense that's at the surface. So I learned it. I was made more aware of it. I started practicing it. And lo and behold, it makes a difference. People treat you differently. They respect you differently. You fit in differently. So all of these elements that came out of this 4-day conference that I just stayed because I happened to be there for really truly made an impact on the experience I wanted to bring in developing Henry A. Davidsen. And so Henry A. Davidsen today is in its 20th year of business. It's seen as a leader, not just in the local market here in Philadelphia, but across the custom clothing industry. I'm actually going to be incoming president of the Custom Tailors and Designers Association. Coming up in January, I will enter my 2-year term as the president of the oldest continually active trade association in our country. And I think that, one, is a tremendous honor, but I think it's just an interesting fact that tailoring's been around that long. People have been collaborating on it for that long. And here we are, me getting to give back to this industry that has really been great for me and really provided me with a why behind what I do and a reason to get out of bed every day. On the other side of it, I also was involved in the Association of Image Consultants International. And those are the 2 professional trade organizations I'm a part of. But I served on the international board of AICI when I was in my late 20s. I actually organized one of those global conferences and had a lasting impact on that organization that is still intact today around the way they run their conference and the education that comes with it and the cadence and everything else there. Being involved in leadership roles really gives you the opportunity to grow, to learn from others, and be surrounded by people that are thinking differently. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of thoughts and feelings in a lot of those rooms, but really, truly, at the end of the day, collaborative work that drives industries forward and helps people practicing in those industries really elevate their careers. So I'm honored to be part of it. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, but it is something that will make me better. And it's something that brings this experience to this show, brings relationships to this show, and has helped shape me into who I am today. And that's something I'm excited to share with you guys. So bringing that all together full circle, Henry Davidsen makes custom clothing. We focus on the higher end of it, but we also bring an added value of image consulting along with it. And this unique approach to what we do makes us different than almost any other custom tailor that's out there, at least that I've ever met practicing in the United States. Even abroad, I've been to shops at Savile Row. They make amazing, beautiful garments, pretty much unrivaled in most places, but it's definitely one of the world's leading hubs of tailoring. But they don't always approach it the same way we approach it, which is we consult with you first. We understand how your lifestyle, your personality reflects through the design of the clothing. And that's important because we need to present our clients with authenticity. We can feel when something's not right. You've probably been in a situation like that, and something just doesn't match up. What I see in the conversation I'm having over here and what I hear, the actual conversation we had, don't line up, right? So understanding that we are having conversations when we walk into a room by the way we hold our posture, by the clothing choices we wear, and by the way we interact with other people, that etiquette piece I was talking about. And then we get to talk. We have a message in our mind that we want to deliver to our audience. When those line up, it's a magnified power of the impact that it all has. Everything seems right. We sense it. All the puzzle pieces are in place. We can see the whole picture clearly. If those don't line up, though, you have this kind of thought of, well, what do I believe? Do I believe what I saw, or do I believe what I heard? I might like this. I might not like that. I might like what I saw, and I might not like what I heard. So there's a difference, but there's a misalignment that happens. And ultimately, it slows down your productivity. It slows down your ability to build a relationship with somebody. It slows down your ability to get the job done, right? You're communicating various different messages. And if they're not aligned, somebody has to make the choice of which one do I believe. And so at Henry Davidsen, we really take that approach to working with you to understand what that message is. And then we craft and design the clothing, and we craft and design a strategy for your wardrobe that's going to support that message so that it's aligned and authentic. It takes a lot of time. We set a big foundation. We also educate on the clothing. So our proven process is consult, educate, design. Most tailors design first, maybe educate a little bit, maybe consult a little bit. But a lot of tailors walk in and say, well, I can make you whatever you want. You tell me. And most consumers, at least clients that we work with, don't necessarily know what they want. Or they might think they know what they want, and it might not be the right thing for them because they have never thought to the depth that we're going to help them think to. So our process does that alignment. It helps men understand, unlike my father, well, who now understands, but back in the day, nobody had taught him why he would even consider making an investment in nicer clothing. Most men are still at that point, unless somebody's educated them or they've taken the leap of faith and tried it. They're not going to just say, well, let me spend 5 times more for what in their mind is the same garment, but it's actually different. But in their mind, uneducatedly, they think it's the same garment. So why would I spend 5 times more if I could get 5 of the same garment over here, have more variety, etc.? We educate them on that. So when they do spend for a nicer garment, ultimately they have that appreciation when they put it on. They know that it's made the right way. They know what the right way and the wrong way. I shouldn't say right and wrong. They know what the better way. I also shouldn't say better. I always say better is relative, right? It's a puzzle. It's what's solving your need that's going to bring you the most value. So let's call it traditional way of making a garment versus the modern way, like mass production versus more individual production, brings the difference to the outcome of the garment, the value, and everything that you're going to get from that. So that's our approach at Henry Davidsen. We typically spend about 2.5 to 3 hours with our clients. We sit, we get to know them, we build relationships with them. And that's a foundation that we lay so that ongoing, they don't necessarily have to spend so much time every time they want to add and continue to build and evolve their wardrobe. We have the plan, we have their folder. They invest time up front, but then the time they get back from every other iteration of having to add to their wardrobe almost pays for itself. And that's the one thing that we all have the same amount of is time. And we have to value that time and be intentional with our time and the way we spend it. And the wealthiest man in the world or wealthiest woman in the world and the poorest person in the world are on an even playing field when it comes to time. We all have 24 hours in a day. We all choose how we spend that time. And I think it's those that spend it with intention and with a plan that see the best return and results of their time. So when we can give a client time back where they didn't have to go shopping, they didn't have to search, they were able to find that unique piece that was exactly what they were looking for or exactly suited to them, no pun intended. That's where, our lasting value comes time and time and time again at Henry Davidsen. I've rambled enough about Henry Davidsen. We're going to filter things in throughout the show about Henry Davidsen. So let's talk about the show. And you're going to hear me say this time and time again. This show is not about being a gentleman, but it's about the art of living like one. So we're not going to be giving you tips and tricks, although some of what we talk about will probably filter into that. But this isn't a how-to guide of how to be a gentleman. What I want to explore with you is really all of the elements that I've found adjacent to finer clothing that my clients are into and that I'm into. I actually say my true passions are living where humans aren't supposed to. So I'm fascinated by learning to fly a plane. I love traveling and being on a plane. So anytime I can be up in the sky, I'm in my element. I'm happy. And I also am an avid scuba diver. So living under the water where humans aren't supposed to, I find fascinating. I find there's a whole world that 99% of the world's population will probably never experience. Between those two elements, if I could do that every day in retirement, that might be where I end up. But for today and where we are now, really, there are other things that get me through my day as well. There are other things I like to explore and learn about. And we're going to talk about them on the show. So we have wine, and you could go pick up a $4.99 bottle of wine, or back in the day, $2 Chuck. Anybody that was from California might be familiar with that. I think it might be up to $3 now. But why can you go get a $2 or $3 bottle of wine somewhere, and then on the flip side of it, you have bottles of wine that cost $150, $200, $300, $400? What's the difference? Why would anybody ever pay? Right? There's that question again. Why? Why would you pay $200 for a glass of wine? What's the difference? We're going to explore some of that. Same thing with whiskey. Fascinated by whiskey. There are so many whiskeys, and if you look at the industry of bourbon has exploded over the last 10 to 15 years. Scotch whiskey before that has a heritage going way, way back. I have to look at my notes on my whiskey ambassador course. I actually went and got certified in Scotch whiskey and bourbon whiskey as a interest to myself. But people have been drinking alcohol and spirits since the dawn of time, since they first figured out that yeast would eat sugar and output alcohol. So what makes one whiskey better than the other or different? How do we explore whiskey? We're going to talk to people in the spirits world and really kind of explore that and bring some knowledge to you guys. And we just did a whiskey tasting with our clients and our members at the store a couple weeks ago. We tasted about 7 or 8 different whiskeys. And we had a really fun time doing that. So hoping to bring some of that knowledge to you guys here. Things I'd like to learn more about myself, watches. Same thing. You could go get a Timex watch or an Apple watch for $50 to a couple $100. And then you could go get a more expensive watch for a couple $100,000. So what's the difference there? And I'll be honest, I have an interest in watches, but I don't know the ins and outs of it. So that's something I'm looking forward to learning more about, becoming more educated about, and experiencing with you guys as we go through this show. We're going to explore cigars. Recently had the opportunity to do a cigar tasting with Davidoff, and looking forward to having their U.S. ambassador as a guest with us to explain a little bit more about the finer points of a cigar and the different types of cigars. I've always known I've enjoyed smoking them. I enjoy the time, the ritual, sitting down generally in a social environment with a friend, having the time to relax and contemplate something. But the first time I ever paired it with food was just recently, and had a lead kind of tasting of a cigar. And I want to learn more about them. What makes a cigar nicer or less? We also had an event about a year ago with Rocky Patel, and hoping that he'll join us on this show as well. He was really fascinating, really educated me on the different leaves, the way that they're harvested and the way that they're fermented and rolled, and what makes a good cigar and how they test them. And there was just so much information. I'm really excited to have Rocky come teach us more. And it's really, again, about learning. So let's see, what else are we going to talk about? We might talk about some travel. Later today, I'm actually off to Norway with my family. We're going to go explore the fjords, and it's a part of the world I've never been to, and I'm really excited to get there and see something new. But I find that travel, for me, has always been about an experience. And I always learn something, whether I'm putting myself in a new situation that I need to figure out and navigate, or I'm meeting somebody that has a different point of view, and I learn from their culture and their experiences in life. My best memories definitely have come from traveling the globe and being very fortunate to have the means to explore, but really the excitement to go out and find something new and really see what's out there and learn and gather an experience that I can share with somebody else, share with you guys. So I look forward to talking about this trip, down the road. I think we'll probably at some point talk about cars. We'll talk about entrepreneurship. So that there's so many different topics, and we're going to explore, again, the finer elements of those topics, the intention that go into the topics, and why you see luxury come out of it, and why gentlemen of a certain success partake in these things. Stay tuned. Join us on future episodes. Please like the episodes. Please leave comments. I want to hear your feedback. I would love to really know what we're doing well and know what we need to improve on. Follow us on any social channels that you're on. You can find us on YouTube, find us on Spotify, anywhere you would listen to a podcast, Apple, iTunes. Please share with your friends, anybody that you think might be interested in these conversations we're going to have. I really, really, truly appreciate you guys spending time with me today. And again, my name is Brian Lipstein. This is The Gentlemanly Things.